Yo, what's going on, everybody? Long time no see. Your bro Jadiro here, and today we're talking about the Season 11 Campfire Chat that we have with the devs today. And listen, guys, there were some high highs and some low lows and some absolutely diabolical things that came out of their mouths. So we're going to start off this video by keeping it objective. So I'm just going to go over all the things that they mentioned, all the things that changed, and all the things that didn't change from the PTR. First off, let's talk about tempering. So there's very few changes here. They did add some cool things, like they did add the ability for the chance to roll a greater affix on one of the temper menus that you select. So I think that's a cool idea. Definitely gives us increased power, but we are no longer getting two temper affixes as it was on the PTR. They've also rearranged where some of the temper manuals are, and they've also added some new temper manuals from what I gather. They didn't say anything too specific, but let's keep it moving here with Masterworking. Now they're making the Masterworking cap increase from 20 to 25. We'll be able to heighten our toughness, resistance, and damage scaling on the different items that we can masterwork. We'll also get bonuses to all of the affixes per rank on the item. And at rank 25, we get our Capstone bonus, which increases a specific affix by 50%. Now, I did mention this as a positive simply because we're getting an overall power gain. Now, I really wish they kept Masterworking the same as it was and they allowed us to go back a step in rank. So, for instance, say we got 12 out of 12 and we didn't like the crit that we got on the affix, we can roll back a step. I really would have loved to see that implemented before we jump to this new version of Masterworking. However, I digress. Let's move on to the defensive updates. Essentially, what they spoke about here was just simply toughness, the introduction of toughness. So nothing has changed from the PTR and what they've already spoken about with regards to the defensive updates. Moving right down, we have the health and potion system. Now we're going to have a potion capacity of 4 as we start. Same as the PTR. They said that potions are now instant and they're percentage based. And they also said that potions will regenerate every 30 seconds. Now I believe this is simply because they're trying to make the game more difficult, and especially for newer players that are struggling to progress through the difficulties. I think like having these affixes is their fix to helping us survive longer. But to be completely honest, I don't think any of these affixes like life on hit or life per second or any life per whatever is going to really matter in the end game. So it's definitely a small quality of life improvement for new players, but for veterans and people that play the game casually, I don't think you're going to notice the difference. Now moving down, they also mentioned a Fortify redesign. Now, Fortify fills up a separate health reserve equal to your maximum life. And when your health starts to drop below your maximum health, that Fortify reservoir starts to fill and heal you. So essentially, this is to help you sustain and survive through the new difficulty of Season 11. Now moving down, we have Monster Combat Evolved and Elite Enemy Update. I kind of crammed everything into one section here because it basically covered the same things. Now the devs described regular monsters and elites as being tougher and smarter. And they also said that monsters will now act more independently than the clump or the pack that they're in. So essentially the new monsters will have a mind of their own and they'll be able to attack you in ways that'll have to keep you moving and guessing, and they say they'll keep you sharper. They also said they added 20 new elite affixes. So we're going to have to deal with a whole bunch of new affixes. And my hope here is, because we couldn't really clearly see it in the video, but my hope here is that these new affixes actually make you have to play the game properly. Like you can't just face tank everything and survive and have a game that actually skill tests you in some capacity. And I hope these 20 new affixes that they're adding to the elites is something along those lines. So I want to take a break right here and just say I think there are some good things coming to Season 11. Essentially, this is a rework, and it's cool to see the game get a little bit more difficult than it already was. I do appreciate the challenge as a casual blaster myself, but again, I don't know how significant this is going to be once we get to the end game, but maybe that's the point. They also mentioned something about new champion packs. So essentially, like there's going to be like these super elites and like these super packs of monsters that can form. They didn't really talk too much about it, but what I imagine is that they're harder to defeat and they also offer a greater reward. That's what I imagine is happening with these new champion packs that they're talking about. And again, I wrote down here, it's one of the few challenges I think that generally improves the gameplay that we'll be experiencing. Now, onto the Seasonal Realm update with the Lesser Evil and the Divine Gifts. Now, nothing much has changed. They basically just regurgitated everything that we saw on the PTR. You know, we're going to have Duriel in the Hell Tides, Belial in the Pit, Endurio in the Other City. And I want to mention something about Endurio. That's not how you spell the name, but I think that's how it autocorrected. There's a whole new model for Endurio. So if you actually go and watch the video, maybe I could pull it up here. Let's see if I can pull something up here. It's the best shot I could get from their update. I don't know if you guys can see, but that's Endurio. Endurio has like a new model, and I didn't see anyone really talking about this too much. I'll try and make it a little bigger so you guys can see it. So essentially it looks like she's bearing some sort of like anchor or like boat looking thing on her shoulders, and she's got like a whole new model. Now I know this isn't like a huge like big deal, but to me it is. I think that's really cool with the lore and also with the, the art that Blizzard brings to the table. It's one of their strongest features still to this day, is that they have some of the coolest, like, art and cinematics in any video game ever. But I really like the design here, and if that's Anduriel, or if this is some sort of secret boss, I'm pretty sure this is Anduriel. That looks pretty sweet. So in summary, just in case I missed it, all the lesser evils are in the game now, and they all reside in different activities in Sanctuary, and we all get to experience it together. Nothing has changed from the BTR. And the same goes for the divine gifts. Nothing much has changed here. We do get a mention of divine favor. That's how we level up our divine gifts. So essentially, that's the currency that's going to be dropping in the new season on our seasonal journey. But nothing is different from the PTR. We still get that reap reward system with the divine gifts, and they simply juice or throttle the activities that we're doing in Sanctuary, like Hell Tides or the Pit, you name it. That's what the divine gifts do. Now, moving on to the Sanctification system. Now, I made a huge video on things I would have loved to see for Season 11. Sanctification was one of the main topics. It doesn't look like, the feedback was heard by specifically me. I really tried to mention and have a greater voice for the community at large, but it seems like they kind of went with what was already on the PTR. As you know, Sanctification grants us a huge buff, or allegedly a huge buff, to our weapon, armor, amulet, or rings. Now, what Sanctification grants that looks a little bit different is we're getting these Sanctification specific affixes. So it's its own unique pool of affixes that we can add to our weapons, our jewelry, our armor. You get it. We can also sanctify and get an additional greater affix on our armor or a weapon or jewelry. Or we can get an additional legendary power attached to our items, which is pretty cool too. It's definitely better than I expected, but I was hoping that we could get class specific affixes on our items. I thought that'd been really cool to give us more build variety, seeing as that we're losing some of the seasonal powers from Season 10, and those are not staying in the game permanently. Now onto the seasonal rank system. Essentially, this is a repeat process of the earlier seasons where we had to collect Altars of Lilith. And the whole idea here is that we don't start with any kind of significant power when we start a new season. Now, this all looks good on paper, of course, because we have to progress through the seasonal ranks to get our powers and our Paragon points and our skill points. But I really think it's an overall nerf, especially if we're losing those all stats. Unless they do somehow give us back those all stats, I think that would be cool. But essentially, what it looks like is a nerf. Now, moving down here to the Capstone dungeons, I think they're cool. Some people think they're cool. I don't think they're necessary, honestly. I think it's just gatekeeping, powers and progression behind Capstone dungeons. Like I remember on the PTR, in order to access the pit, I had to beat a certain Capstone dungeon. So once I hit 60, I wasn't just granted access to the pit. I had to beat a Capstone dungeon in order to take part in the pit. Now, I hope these aren't mandatory. I do hope that they leave this as an optional thing for players to do, like especially if we're looking for, late game loot and stuff like that. I think they do serve a purpose, but I don't think it's a good idea to gatekeep certain progression behind these Capstone dungeons, if that's what they intend. Just don't make them mandatory, make them optional, and I think, everyone will be happy. Now, that does it for everything objectively when we're talking about the campfire chat with the devs for Season 11. Next, I'm going to go over my personal thoughts, concerns, and criticisms. Now, I don't want to get too deep into the weeds. Like, again, this is just a video game at the end of the day. But the one thing that I thought really, really hurt, and I thought was like, oh man, I really thought they would have had a change of heart, was keeping the Chaos perks or the Chaos uniques in the game going into Season 11. The devs do claim that they heard the outcry from the community. They said that the DNA of Chaos uniques will be implemented in future seasons. And what they were giving us an example of was the Melted Heart of Sea Lake. They took a Chaos power from Season 10 and they pretty much applied it to a Mythic unique. In my opinion, Season 10 is arguably the best season we've ever had since Diablo 4 launched. And Chaos uniques were one of the best seasonal features that we've ever had since the game launched as well. And with the amount of players that requested for Chaos uniques to stay in the game, I'm very surprised that there was zero compromise in terms of maybe even allowing us to have, maybe one equipable Chaos unique, just to give us some build diversity and power. I don't think it would have imploded on itself. I think it would have been awesome that we would have had the ability to have more build variety and create more builds with these Chaos uniques. But again, I have a whole other video on that, so I'm gonna leave it there. But what I'm trying to say is it really sucks that Chaos uniques aren't a permanent feature. That's just absolutely diabolical. They said that they're not going to have the tower available at season launch. Like, they said that live during the live stream. Like, that's unbelievable. Now, one of the fundamental things missing in Diablo 4 right now is endgame. And the tower provided not only a leaderboard, but a competitive nature to the game, which I think a lot of casual players were looking forward to. Not necessarily to compete, but just to have something to do in the endgame besides the pit, even though the tower is essentially the pit. It's kind of funny that they said they weren't going to have it until January, if that's the month they said. I believe that's the month they said. Now, for me, I just don't understand the logistics behind it. Not only did we have access to an early PTR, but they also had extra time to work on Season 11. And leaderboards in the tower was one of the flagship things coming to the game that was going to be a permanent feature with Season 11. So to go on a live stream and say, hey, yeah, sorry about that. We got to work on it. We got to fine tune it. We want it to be the very best. You're going to have to wait till January. It's just absolutely insane. Absolutely. Now, before we wrap it up here, I want to talk about the last thing, which is the season launch date. Now, the season is dropping on December 11th, which is a Thursday. Historically, Diablo 4 has always dropped on a Tuesday. Whether that's the game, the launch, the season, whatever the case may be, it's always a Tuesday. So we went from having damage on Tuesdays, now we're having damage on Thursdays to end the year off. Now, a lot of people like myself, content creators and general players, schedule their days around the launch days on a Tuesday for Diablo 4. So I feel like this is really going to discombobulate some of those players, myself added, simply because it's on a Thursday now. I might actually just end up playing on Friday, which I think a lot of other players will do too. Now, the catch with that is PoE2 is also launching one of the best and biggest seasons they've ever launched with the Druid on the Friday. So my hunch here is that a lot of people are going to play on the Friday if they do play Season 11. And I also have a hunch with PoE2 dropping on Friday that a lot of the player base from Diablo 4 are going to be playing PoE2. Now, the word on the street here is that it's not PoE2 as to why Diablo 4 is launching Season 11 the day before. Apparently, the Game Awards are coming out on December 11th. And I believe that Blizzard's trying to line up something special with the launch of the new season and maybe the sneak peek at the expansion at the Game Awards. I do feel like it's a little bit of a poorly timed decision. I understand that they're trying to do two birds, one stone, but it's definitely unnecessary. It could have started on Tuesday, in my opinion. Unless, of course, there's some crazy plan to launch the expansion early, which would make sense. Now, here are my predictions and overall thoughts for Season 11 before it launches. I do like the difficulty increasing and making the elite packs and the enemies more difficult. I do think that's a good change to give players a challenge. However, some of the seasonal changes and things like the Capstone dungeon, I feel like there's a lot of unnecessary changes. I feel like they're reworking the game in ways that they don't have to. Now, I hate to say this because I want to see Diablo 4 do good, but I do think that Season 11 will be a significantly short season. Like Season 10, for instance, I was playing that all the way into November. And I don't think the same will be true for Season 11. Now, another tone that I felt was the feeling of the developers asking us to provide feedback, and then we go play the PTR and we test the new season, we provide feedback, and then I feel like our feedback just goes in one ear and out the other. Now, I understand those are big changes that everyone was asking for, especially myself asking for, chaos uniques and sanctification to have class specific, affixes added to the game. I understand those are probably big changes. In summary, what I believe I'm trying to say is it doesn't really matter what we say. It feels like a lot of what we experience in the PTR will happen regardless. Now, another thing I want to mention here is it's clearly just a rework season. This is a season where they rework the game, and I feel like it might be a step back and hopefully provide some huge forward momentum in the future seasons. Now, to end this video, guys, I really hope some of the things I feel about the game right now, I really hope I'm wrong. I really enjoy Diablo 4 and I want to see the game succeed. I'm not a Diablo 4 partner program content creator. I'm just a dude that loves playing the game and love running it back on my Spiritborn and enjoying the game as a whole. But as time goes on, that loyalty and that faith starts to fade away from me. So the only conclusion I'm left with is to take the game with a grain of salt, to take the whole Diablo 4 experience with a grain of salt. And I advise that to everyone that plays Diablo 4. The truth is, Season 11 will come out, everyone's going to give it a go, and if it's absolute buns, we're all just going to move on and play a different game. And hopefully the developers at Diablo 4 really hear that sentiment and try to capture that essence that they caught in Season 10 and bring that into future seasons. But that brings me to my closing comments and my questions of the video. So sound off in the comments, guys, and let me know what you guys thought of the Campfire Chat yourselves. And if Season 11 flops, what game will you be playing? Well, that does it for me, guys. I'm your bro, Jadiro. Sign out for now. Peace.